When I was around 12 years old, my best friend and I spent nearly every weekend outside, exploring the woods and hills around our village. We loved the freedom of nature, the smell of pine trees, the sound of birds, and the rough feel of the earth under our boots. That summer, we decided to go farther than usual. We wanted to find something new, a hidden place nobody else had seen. We packed small backpacks with sandwiches, juice, and flashlights. We didn't expect to stay late or face anything scary. It was just two kids chasing a little adventure on warm summer days, laughing and imagining ourselves as great explorers. After hours of hiking, following narrow trails and crossing streams, we came across something strange, a concrete structure half buried in the ground and covered with moss and vines. It didn't look like any normal building. It was rough, gray, and cold to the touch. "It's a bunker," I said, recognizing the shape from history books. The metal door was rusty but still shut tight. We looked around carefully. No signs of people, no footprints, just silence. Curiosity pushed us forward. We found a way to pry the door open, just enough to squeeze inside. The air inside was thick with dust and coldness. Our flashlights barely lit the narrow stairs leading down. Every step echoed in the tight concrete walls. The smell was a mix of damp earth and old metal. The silence was deep. It felt like the bunker was holding its breath. We reached the first underground level and started exploring. Old pipes and broken furniture lay scattered. The walls were scratched and painted with faded graffiti. It was like stepping back into another time, a place frozen in history but forgotten by the world. On the second level, the temperature dropped noticeably. It felt like the bunker itself was growing colder the deeper we went. That's when we saw them, about 10 bats lying dead on the cold concrete floor. At first, we thought they were just rats or something similar, but no, these were bats, small and fragile. We wondered why they were all dead here. It made the place feel even more eerie. I bent down to get a closer look, my breath visible in the chilly air. A strange heaviness settled on me, like something invisible was watching. Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A dark and shapeless shadow started to take form just beyond the beam of my flashlight. I froze. It moved slowly, almost gliding toward me. My heart pounded loud in my chest. I just wanted to run but couldn't move. Each blink brought it closer. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look straight at it. There was no face, no features, just a deep black shadow, darker than anything I had ever seen. It felt alive and full of anger. I yelled for my friend and grabbed his arm. "Run, now!" My voice cracked with fear. We both turned and dashed for the stairs. My legs burned and my lungs gasped for air, but I didn't stop. Behind us, I thought I heard footsteps, soft but fast, coming closer. I dared not look back. The cold air outside was the only thing that kept me going. Once we burst out into the daylight, the weight on my chest lifted a little, but my shaking hands told me the danger wasn't just in my mind. As we slowed down, my friend looked at me with wide eyes. "Did you see it too?" he asked quietly. He told me he saw the shadow too, lurking just behind a corner, watching us as we ran away. Knowing I wasn't alone in seeing it made the fear even more real. We both agreed it wasn't a trick of the light or imagination. The next day, we told my friend's father what happened. He looked serious and said, "That bunker saw a lot of death during the war. Many soldiers never left it alive." He told us there was a small army museum nearby that shared stories of battles, loss, and pain. He wondered if the shadow was a restless spirit, someone who still haunted the place where they died. Years later, I still think about that day. The cold, the silence, the dead bats, and especially the shadow. Sometimes when I pass near Kraliki, I feel a shiver run down my spine. That bunker holds secrets, dark and painful ones, and the shadow inside is a reminder that some places carry the weight of history, forever waiting in the dark. 3 years ago, I went on a solo hiking and camping trip in the Arctic Circle. I had done trips like this before, so I wasn't nervous. I had my gear, food, knife, and everything I needed to stay safe. I wanted peace, quiet, and space to think. That part of the world is beautiful but cold, empty, and almost dreamlike. You can walk for hours without seeing another person. No noise, no roads, just wild nature. It was summer, so the sun never really set. Even at midnight, the light stayed. It felt like the world was frozen in time. I hiked most of the day and didn't see a single soul. It was just me, the mountains and the trail. After hiking for hours, I reached a mountain ridge. I stopped to rest and figure out the best way down. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Not just one person. It sounded like three voices laughing together. At first, I thought it might be hikers. I even felt a little annoyed. I didn't come all the way out here to hear people joking around. But then I realized something strange. I hadn't seen anyone all day. No footprints, no gear, and no smoke from a campfire. Nothing. I looked around, scanning the area behind me and the woods above, but I didn't see anyone, just empty trees and quiet hills. The laughter faded. I told myself it was just the wind. Sound travels weird in the mountains. I decided to keep moving. I started walking down the slope, slow and careful. About 10 minutes passed. Suddenly, I got that heavy feeling like someone was watching me, so I stopped. My back felt cold, like a shadow had fallen over me, and I turned around. 3 people were standing behind me. They hadn't been there before. There was no sound, no warning. They were just somehow there, standing completely still about 10 feet away. They didn't speak. They didn't wave. They just laughed. The sound was wrong. It didn't feel normal. It was loud, high-pitched, and strange. Their faces didn't match the laughter. They weren't smiling with their eyes, just their mouths. The way they stood gave me chills. Too still and too calm. I felt a jolt of fear. I stepped back and yelled, "Hey!" Still, they said nothing and just laughed. I moved my hand to my belt. I had a big survival knife strapped there, a Bark River blade. I don't usually pull it out unless I really need to, but now I wanted them to know I was armed. One of the strangers looked down at my knife. He turned his head, whispered something to the others. They stopped laughing, and then without a word, they all stepped back. The silence hit hard. No birds, no wind, no footsteps, just stillness. I turned away for a second, thinking I'd just get out of there. I had enough, and I didn't want to play games in the middle of nowhere. I stepped down the path again. Then I looked back, and they were gone. Just like that. No walking, no running, no sound, no sign of movement. I didn't care about anything else at that point. I just ran. My gear was heavy, my legs hurt, and my lungs were burning. But I didn't stop. I didn't want to look back. I didn't want to hear more laughter. I just wanted to get far away. Hours passed. I didn't rest or stop to eat or drink. I didn't take pictures or enjoy the view. I moved like something was chasing me, even if I didn't see it anymore. Every little sound made me jump. A twig snapping, wind in the trees, even the sound of my boots hitting the trail made me nervous. I felt like something was behind me the whole way. I finally made it back to the trailhead where there was a small ranger station. When I got there, I sat down hard. My legs were shaking and I was soaked in sweat. My hands were ice cold. I thought maybe I had seen a ghost, or maybe 3. The rangers looked at me, asked if I was okay. I told them what happened. They said no one had checked in that day. No hikers, no campers, no one missing. I was the only one out there. Even now, years later, I think about that moment. Who were they? How did they get so close without making a sound? Why did they disappear like that? Some people say maybe I imagined it. Maybe I was tired or stressed, but I've camped alone in worse conditions. I know the difference between a bad dream and real danger, and this was real. I never saw their faces clearly. I just remember the sound, the horrible fake laughter, and the way they stood there, too still. The way one of them looked at my knife, the way they stepped back like they knew something, and then they just disappeared. Since that day, I've never returned to that part of the Arctic. I still hike and camp, but I'm more careful now. I trust my gut. I never ignore that heavy feeling anymore. When it tells me to look over my shoulder, I do. And if I ever hear laughter in the woods again, I won't stick around to find out who it is. I've always loved the mountains in Scotland. There's something peaceful about them, wild, quiet, and far away from everything. One summer, I decided to take a weekend off and go hiking alone in the highlands. Just me and nature. I packed everything I thought I'd need: a tent, food, flashlight, warm clothes, and a map. I didn't tell many people where I was going. I liked the idea of being completely alone. No noise, no emails, no city buzz. That morning was cool and fresh. The sky was clear, and the air smelled like pine and damp earth. As I stepped onto the trail and walked into the hills, I felt a kind of excitement I hadn't felt in a long time. Birds chirped in the trees. Everything felt perfect. The sun climbed higher as I walked. The hills were covered in purple heather, and the breeze was just enough to keep me cool. I stopped at a little stream to drink some cold water and rest my legs. The whole landscape felt like it was out of a painting. By late afternoon, I found a quiet spot beside a small loch. The water was so clear and still. I set up my tent and built a small fire. The sky turned a deep blue and the wind was soft like a whisper. I cooked a simple dinner and sat by the flames as the stars slowly appeared overhead. It was one of those moments where you feel completely at peace, just you and the world. Sometime around midnight, I woke up to a sound outside my tent. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but then I heard footsteps, slow and careful, walking in circles around my camp. I held my breath and listened. The steps moved closer, then stopped. I peeked out of the tent, but I didn't see anything, just the dark outlines of trees. No animals, no people, no nothing, and then silence. I tried to convince myself it was just a deer or something harmless, but I couldn't shake this weird feeling in my chest like something wasn't right. The next morning I decided to keep going, hike deeper into the forest, but the weather had turned. Thick mist rolled in, covering everything in a gray blanket. The trees looked strange, almost ghostly. As I walked, I spotted a flickering light through the mist. It looked like a small flame, maybe a candle or a campfire. I felt curious and decided to check it out. The deeper I went, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no bugs, no wind, just the crunch of my boots in that soft, flickering light ahead. I followed the light and found an old bothy hidden among the trees. It looked abandoned with broken windows and a wooden door barely hanging on. Inside, a candle burned on a dusty table, throwing shadows on the walls. The strangest part was the carvings. All over the wooden walls were strange symbols like circles, runes, weird lines I couldn't understand. The air inside was cold and smelled old and damp. Something about the place gave me chills. I didn't know why, but I didn't want to stay there long. As I stared at the carvings, I suddenly heard something like a whisper. At first, I thought it was wind slipping through the cracks, but then it got clearer. It was saying my name. Mark. Mark. The voice came from outside through the mist. I stepped out of the bothy, heart racing, trying to figure out who was calling me. The mist was thick, swirling around like it was alive, so I couldn't see far. But the whisper kept calling, pulling me deeper into the woods. I tried to head back, but the trail was gone. Everything looked different. The mist got heavier and I felt completely lost. The whispers changed. They weren't soft anymore. They were angry, loud, and all around me. No matter which way I turned, the voice echoed, circling me. I felt watched and hunted. My heart pounded. I was scared. Then my flashlight flickered and died. The panic really hit. The sun had gone down. I was alone, and I had no idea where I was. That's when I saw it. A tall, dark figure stood in the mist. I couldn't see its face, but its eyes glowed. Bright and unnatural, I shouted, but it didn't stop. It came closer really fast. I turned to run, but tripped over a root and hit the ground hard. When I looked up, it was gone. I wandered through the forest all night, too scared to stop. Eventually, just after sunrise, I stumbled onto a familiar trail. I followed it all the way back to my car without looking back. I don't talk about that trip much, but when I do, people just give me strange looks. I've heard some locals talk about that area. They say people have gone missing in those hills. They whisper about an old spirit in the mist, one that calls your name and leads you off the path. I haven't gone back since. Even now, sometimes when I'm walking alone in quiet places, I hear whispers and I remember those glowing eyes in the fog. It's something I'll never forget.